Well, one of the ways we approach our sequel development is it's all driven by the fan feedback. So, Mass Effect 2 is driven largely by the feedback we get from fans and press and other sources, internal feedback and so on. Mass Effect 3, we haven't announced that formally yet, but we always said it's a trilogy, so natural to assume there would be one. It's going to be driven by the feedback we got on the first two games in the franchise. So it's going to be very much driven by what the fans want to see. And we do a lot of focus testing, a lot of usability testing all the way through development, and take that feedback to heart. It's really important to us to evolve our craft based on the fans' direct feedback and input. And the RPG systems in Mass Effect 2, they were definitely there, and they were a little more, they were kind of distributed through the ship. The ship was sort of almost a character in the game, and you get to kind of grab your weapons off the rack as you head off and that. And people saying they want, maybe a little more intensity of how that experience is delivered. We certainly want to take that feedback if that's consistently what they're saying. We want to try and deliver against that. So, it's always important to us. At the end of the day, there's lots of input and lots of votes, but it's not a democracy. You have to make a decision. You have to choose a authorial direction, and you have to decide. So we have creative leaders in our franchises and across our teams. Strong lead designers and art directors and exec producers, project directors that are really they take all the feedback to heart, and they try and make the best decision that they can to satisfy the wider audience of fans, and one which actually innovates and takes some risks sometimes too. Maybe aren't things that the fans are asking for, but which we think this would be a creative direction that, I think I said earlier, is in order to surprise and delight, you have to take some risks. So we want to surprise and delight our fans, and we're willing to take some risks to do that.
Yeah, we need to be very careful, not just to listen to the loudest voices. That's one of the key errors that you can make on the sort of listen to fan feedback side, because the loudest ones are not necessarily everyone, and often they're like a very vocal minority. So we do a lot of not just reading fan forums, but you look at the forums, you actually do research against it. There's a fair amount of times that we actually do research against the actual game and ask a broader swath of people questions and have them explore stuff for us. And also there's the telemetry of the game, so we actually have a sense of what people are doing when they play. So we actually get a lot of data back about how many people did actually finish it, how many people played different parts, or what seemed to be the most popular, in the case of Dragon Age, we knew which was the most popular origin story, which was the least.
That's a good point. It's not just qualitative feedback, it's also quantitative measurement, telemetry and analytics combined with that qualitative feedback, and then through a filter of our team's intuition and best judgment as well.
Because we're not saying we let our fans design our games per se, but we certainly want to respond to what they want. And I think a lot of times you don't actually even know until you've launched it. That's one of the still the very scary things about games, even when you do all that research in advance, because they'll often tell you one thing, and then the reality you see from what they're doing when they play, it's totally different. But that when it comes down to the real rubber hitting the road and making the final decisions, it's not until you actually see them play do you actually understand what they're doing.
And this is the essence of why games are an art form. I think is we say that a lot and we really mean it. It's like there's so much subjective decisions that have to be made, but they're done in the context of quantitative and qualitative feedback from our audience. And at the end of the day, it still is an art form. The choices you make are difficult to make sometimes. You have conflicting paths, just like in an RPG. You can make different choices that have different outcomes, different consequences. The same is true when you're actually creating that content. You have to make certain, sometimes very hard choices about how this narrative is going to flow, or how the action combat will flow, or which areas you get to go in the world and which areas you don't get to go to this time, but maybe we'll save them for later. And these are all decisions that our teams make, and try and do the best we can for our fans. We always describe that our best work is ahead of us, and I think that's, we're always trying to push the envelope and innovate and always try and make things better. And part of that's because you can always improve based on feedback, and that's why one of our core values at BioWare is humility, is listening to that feedback really, really seriously and trying to take it to heart to make our best work.
Can you see yourself supporting Dragon Age after Dragon Age 2 comes out? Is there any chance that you're going to support them both simultaneously?
Well, I think we'll definitely support it in terms of continue to run all the servers and all the online stuff, and you never know. I think it's they're different kinds of games as well, right? In the sense that Dragon Age 2 is this the frame narrative, the focused story of Hawk. It's a character, whereas the original Dragon Age is like this broad, expansive world. So they are. You never know. I think it's not something we really thought that much about in a lot of detail, but it's like I said earlier, it's really successful. So if something works, you want to keep doing it.
There are men who flee
What was the decision to go to the one character in Dragon Age 2? Obviously, the first one was the Origins. You could choose where you come from, and now you've it's more like Mass Effect, and you've got one singular character. I mean, is that important in creating a bigger emotional tie?
You know, it's a different kind of story. You know, it's a different way to tell the story. It's a different way to approach the story in Dragon Age. And we thought the frame narrative approach of taking these snapshots in time over a decade or more and kind of showing, you know, how your actions as a character, Hawk, this really awesome hero that kind of starts off in the timeline of Dragon Age Origins and goes from there. You know, how that unfolds and how that has an impact, the choice and consequences on the story universe of the whole game world of Dragon Age. We thought that'd be kind of fun and cool, and it just felt natural to make that from a first-person perspective or part of it, and then the frame narrative part is almost like a third-person commentary, or even a third-person commentary. We're observing it from another perspective on how that unfolded. And you know, it's just a different way to tell a story. It's different than Dragon Age Origins. It's actually different than Mass Effect 2. So it's, you know, there's many ways to tell a great story, and we're excited and willing to push the envelope a little bit to provide a new access point for the world of Dragon Age for our fans.
Actually, it creates an interesting opportunity, because it's that concept of, you know, you're observing a story being told, and then you actually get to jump in and define the events. So there's always that classic concept of whenever there's a first-person story, you never know if it's true or not. So you know, it allows us kind of the ability to define what truth actually is for that character. And I think we weave it in between the actual original Dragon Age story and the events as well. So it actually all ties together. And you know, and finally, it provides this really interesting historical, you know, perspective, like this sort of ability for you to define more of the world and explore more of the world, which we think players, you know, not only fans, but people that want to learn about the world of Dragon Age and want to play this, you know, really unique experience are going to enjoy.
Can we expect big names in Dragon Age 2 now that you've kind of got this streamlined character?
Yes.
Yes. If you like.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure, we do. I mean, there's definitely some big names. I mean, you have your main character identity, but there's lots of NPCs, non-player characters to interact with in this world. These virtual, you know, these avatars, these personalities, and you're going to bring them to life. You know, our writers do part of that, and our artists and animators do part of that, and the programmers do part of that with the AI and so on. And you have to, you know, imbue them with personality, and a way to do that is to actually associate with great voice talent and great actors and actresses. So we're always interested in that idea.
Yeah, like there may be some characters you've seen before coming back, and obviously, you know, if you have the same character, you want to capture as much of the same as possible. So
Are you saying there may be some
returning
characters that
cast
are
members?
returning?
So I don't know. You never know. I mean,
It's possible.
It's crazy what they think of those kids in that game. They're crazy.
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, if you aren't taking risks, it's really hard to surprise and delight your fans, and that, you know, we believe in that a lot. We want to innovate, and we want to evolve our craft. We see games as an art form. Part of that is always kind of making sure each game we release in the future is better than all the ones we've done before. I mean, we're always striving for that, and we think we owe that to our fans. You know, they keep us in business, and it's our job to continue to provide new content and kind of innovate how we deliver the content too. Whether that's the interface, the graphics, the story arc, the action combat, the progression, the exploration, the IPs, the settings, the themes, you know, all these things are areas and opportunities for us to evolve our craft. So we're very excited about that. And our teams are passionate about quality. Our teams are passionate about innovation and really pushing the envelope. So I think our best work is still ahead of us at BioWare.
Yeah, I think and the other thing to add on sequels, I mean, sequels provide an incredible opportunity to push the envelope. Like, that's the way we think of them. Like, the traditional view is, hey, just rehash. Whereas, we see it as, hey, great, we just saw what our fans think of the game we just made. Now we actually can iterate on it based on what their feedback is, based on how it did, based on what we think worked and didn't work. And it's just a great opportunity. And I think that's you know, for us, we're always trying to try and get better and better and better. And it's like we basically provided the blueprint to do so use it smartly. Whenever you change things people love, like that, you know, there's always been a certain amount of disenfranchisement at some level. But what we've always found, especially if it's fundamentally better, and people have an open mind and give it a chance, they'll see that. And I think that's actually one of the things we found. You know, certainly think about Mass Effect too. Like some people are like, oh, I don't know, it's a lot different. But when you play it, you see that practically all the depth is there. Yeah, it's more streamlined, more playable, even more fun than the original. So that was for us. Yeah, it's not. It's not so much okay. We're gonna do that same thing over and over again. But it was validation of the approach, and it was very definitive, or very definite. We actually right at the beginning of the development cycle all sat down and said, "Here's what we're gonna do." Casey and the team had their list of stuff, and Ray and I looked at it and that's ambitious, aggressive, but it's very exciting. And I think we were so happy with the result because when as we followed through the development and finally at the end see what was there, it's exactly what we started with the plan, and it was exactly what we wanted to deliver.
The great thing about our games is there's a lot of design that occurs in the IP Bible creation, the initial design phase of the game that the players don't necessarily get to see, and it's really fun to be able to surface that to them in things like books and television shows and films and other adaptations, and it's kind of post-release downloadable content or sequels. There's so many ways you can express this, and it's a lot of fun. Our game worlds are incredibly rich, and there's a lot of material behind the scenes that makes it feel more alive and deep. It's almost like an iceberg where a majority of it is never seen by the player, but because it's there, it has a certain weight and intensity that makes it feel that much more real. And the things you're describing are actually ways we can actually share that with the fans, which our teams enjoy doing and the fans enjoy. So it's a win-win.
Dragon Age has got multiple novels as well, again, for the lead writer. It's just, Mass Effect got a little bit of a head start on it. And so that's one thing that's really important. I think also the type of fans that we have at BioWare, they love getting everything. And we haven't got the big feature type film thing announced or anything like that for Dragon Age, but I believe there was an animation project that was underway for Dragon Age or announced at one point. So it's like all these things are, we just see the fact that our games, we'd love to see them live beyond the game, like into as many areas as possible. And a lot of it takes a little time, but we're starting to really get the hang of that. So it's actually getting easier and easier for us to actually drive that kind of stuff. And so, novels, and, as much as we possibly can, even pants.
I don't think we have any pants announced, but we have shirts, lots of shirts on the website. So
Dragon Age boxer shorts, maybe.
That's a very creative idea. I will mention that to our cutting edge online store team and our business development team, and we'll get back to you on that one.
You could do the dragon with the blood splatter down the side.
That'd be very sexy.
Do I get royalties now that I've pitched this idea?
No. But we'll look into the idea.
We'll get your free pair personalized.
Something I can do for you, Shepard?
The characters in the book rarely show up, apart from the first book, in the games. Can we expect to see more kind of integration, like Kaylee Sanders is the example that's coming to mind? Can we expect to see her maybe in Mass Effect 3, kind of a cameo role, maybe?
Not necessarily, but it's a possibility. I mean, those are all things that are possibilities. It's sort of like depends on what the story is for the individual game. It's like each game is a standalone entity and is part of a story arc, a larger whole, and that's part of a universe where the books and other things kind of fit in as well. So, maybe if the fans are really into it, that's a possibility. Maybe we'll get some feedback that they would love to see a cameo appearance by characters from the books or other IP extensions, and then bring them into the games. We've done that in the past.
Yeah, and that's actually one of those cool areas where DLC can play a part, because it allows you to explore little pieces and bits in different ways. And we'd like to be really responsive to the fans. Like if there's anything we ever make that really clicks, and to be fair, that's actually sometimes how we design and plan out some of the DLC. There actually are experimental elements. Again, the Hammerhead was an example of, let's sort of redefine this and see how it'll fit in there, see what people think of it. So there's actually times where we're purposely kind of exploring ideas in DLC. There's also times where if something is of real interest to the fans, we can actually look about bringing it in as an example. So it's all pretty flexible. Like that's one of the great things about starting to get this concept of games as platforms that the game is, you launch the initial game, but then it actually serves the basis for other things you dock into it over time, depending on what people want. That's actually a really, really powerful thing that we're actually starting to do with all our games.
And the last burning question is, are we going to go to Earth in Mass Effect 3? Because that's one of the big things that you read on the forums.
Sounds really interesting.
We haven't even formally announced that there is a Mass Effect 3
Oh, yeah,
yet,
that was very tricky of you.
Is this where you say, but we announced that it was a trilogy?
We have said it's a trilogy, and that is actually one of the things we hear from fans a lot. They would love to return to Earth.
Yeah.
And is it something you are considering, maybe?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting idea, that's for sure.